Sitting between Europe, Africa, and Asia is a place that piques the interest of many people: Saudi Arabia. The kingdom is made up of more than 90% desert or semi-deserts, including Adana and Nafud, Al Jafura, and Rub al Khali deserts. Saudi Arabia, however, may not remain what it seems to you as we present shocking discoveries that will change everything you thought you knew about the kingdom in this video. Number 1. The Saudi Arabia desert was once a green jungle. Many visitors are awed by the vast stretches of dry landscape that make up the Saudi Arabian desert. However, they will be shocked to hear that the area was once covered with a green jungle. So how did the once green forest become a desert? Almost 6,000 years ago, early human communities lived in the congested Nile Valley. Many of those people eventually moved to Asia and then the rest of the world. According to recent research, what drew those communities to Arabia was a change in the weather of the arid desert caused by a sudden burst of monsoon rains. Rain transformed the arid landscape into a lush savanna-like environment in just a few centuries. The lush vegetation and freshwater pools in what is now known as the Empty Quarter or Rub al Khali, the world's largest desert, enclaved by Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, and the UAE, began to attract animals such as elephants, rhinos, hippos, and crocodiles. The monsoon rains that rejuvenated the once arid soil persisted for millennia until it vanished around 7,300 to 5,500 years ago, coinciding with the birth of the ancient Egyptian civilization to which most desert dwellers returned. NASA scientists believe the monsoon rains receded as a result of a shift in the Earth's axis from 24.1 degrees to the current 23.5 degrees, exposing the region's land to more direct sunlight. According to scientific estimates, the wobble occurred in response to gravitational forces from other bodies in the solar system and is likely to occur again as the tilt continues to change between 22 and 25 degrees every 41,000 years. Because the rain stopped abruptly after 300 years, the soil began to dry slowly. It wasn't until approximately 1,100 years later that it became arid. And yes, the same transformation can happen again, according to scientists. Number 2. Haunted House in Jeddah. There is a particular house in Saudi Arabia that taxi drivers won't dare to go near. It attracts shabab who are drawn to its scarred and graffiti-covered walls but almost always stop short of crossing the threshold. The most haunted house in Jeddah has become a legend in its own lifetime, having become well known among the expatriate community as a place of horror. According to the locals, 16 people have entered the depths of this decaying heap, never to be seen again. The derelict house is located on the North Corniche, about 100 meters from the seafront. The more daring members of the street cruising society have daubed graffiti on its facade, and the place is literally falling apart. As it degrades into its constituent parts, the mystery and myth surrounding it grow in direct proportion. Even in broad daylight, just looking at it causes an involuntary shudder. Crows scurry around the crumbling upper works like black rags in the wind. Going through the rusted gates is like walking into a thick silence as the dull roar of the Corniche traffic fades away. The house's eyeless window sockets, once full of warmth and bustle, stare lifelessly out the derelict garden. She is now an old lady ignored in her decline, but still standing proud. She still retains some of her former majesties, but every room in the house is evidence of a fire. The ceilings are black with soot, walls are articulated with curling shards of burned paint, and old wiring melted and cooled hangs from light fittings in plastic stalactites. Number 3. UFO sighted over Riyadh. Apparently, Saudi Arabia is not only fascinating to terrestrial creatures, as a UFO has been sighted in the kingdom, signifying the interest from aliens. Videos of the UFO were captured as it moved through the sky in the city of Medina, sparking UFO alerts. The UFO was sighted at about 9 p.m. There are 2 lights moving in the video, which suggests there might have been multiple alien objects involved. One of the videos was recorded near the Prophet's Mosque in Al-Masjid Al-Nabawi Square. One of the eyewitnesses who recorded the video told news outlets he was just passing by the mosque when he saw the object. He was still recording when the light split into 2, after which he lost track of them. This is another UFO spotting that involves multiple witnesses because there were thousands of people on hand to see and also record. As a result, there are multiple videos of the incident on YouTube. Number 4. Haunted Hospital in Riyadh. A hospital in Riyadh has attracted lots of attention because of the presence of jinns. The facility was used to treat Gulf warfighters. Teenagers sent text messages calling for an operation to expel some of the jinns who live in the hospital. Perhaps they overstayed their welcome. The rampage sparked angry press complaints that the authorities were allowing the building to deteriorate. Several videos have since been uploaded to YouTube showing grinning young men exploring the abandoned rooms of the building in search of evidence of spectral activity. One showed blazing palm trees that had been torched by the ghost hunters. Jinn fever reached the point where the health ministry issued a brief statement denying responsibility for the deteriorating structure, which it claimed was privately owned and too dilapidated to be reopened as a hospital. A columnist suggested that the authorities form a jinn committee to assist owners of possessed homes. One thing to note is that unlike ghosts in the Western tradition, jinns in Saudi Arabia are not considered lost souls of the dead, but rather beings who live parallel lives to humans, whom they occasionally tempt into sinful behavior. Number 5. The mystery of the 4,000-year-old rock cut perfectly with a laser. Modern technology is the stuff ancient people would have been jealous of if they could have somehow glimpsed the distant future. However, it appears these people of olden times had their own neat tech that can wow us too. This is the case with the Al Nazla rock formation in Saudi Arabia. Rocks are a dime a dozen in the Middle East, but this one stands out because it has a perfect cut in the middle. A millimeter thin but exact separation divides this massive stone into two, making it look like somebody used a laser device on the rock. Many people are baffled by the partitions, which are supported by small natural pedestals. The Al Nazla rock was discovered more than 4,000 years ago in the kingdom's Tamar oasis. It is a popular tourist destination and people come from all over to see it and take pictures. At the same time, it is still a source of contention among scientists. The rock is 30 feet long and 25 feet wide, with a notch depicting what appears to be a man on a horse. One geologist believes the split was caused by weathering or melting ice, but this is not universally accepted. They claim it is so precise and smooth that it must have been created by aliens who visited Earth in the distant past and used a massive laser to split it into two, which is a different theory. One user on social media speculated that the divide was created when an alien messed up with a super laser pointer on some random planet their species found and accidentally cut a rock in half. Number 6. Saudi Arabia actually imports sand. As a nation sitting on large tracts of desert, you would expect Saudi Arabia to have more than enough sand to export. However, the opposite is the case, as Saudi Arabia actually buys sand. Why is this the case? Well, sand is required for almost all major construction projects, and it's also used to make all major building materials, such as concrete, bricks, and glass. In fact, it is because of this that it's the second most commonly used natural commodity after water, even if it doesn't get as much attention. Saudi Arabia is a sandy desert, but the sand is not suitable for construction. Individual desert sand granules have smooth edges that are unsuitable for construction, whereas river sand has jagged edges that are ideal for construction concrete. And as a result of the increased level of construction activity around the world, river sand is in high demand and in short supply. Furthermore, it takes hundreds of years for a river to produce sand. Talk of starving in the midst of plenty. To make up for the shortfall, the kingdom imports sand from all over the world. One of its biggest sand trading partners is Australia, and the trade runs into billions of dollars annually, and it is rising briskly with thousands of companies involved in the Down Under. Number 7. Snow covers the desert. Most people envision sand dunes baked by relentless sunlight when they think of the Saudi Arabian desert. However, those sands have recently been covered in snow. Several recent snow and hailstorms in the region have transformed landscapes in and around Saudi Arabia, causing excitement among residents and a social media sensation. A Saudi photographer, Osama Al-Habri, captured aerial images of Badra Governorate, southwest of the Islamic pilgrimage city of Medina, dressed in white as locals gathered to enjoy the unusual sight. Al-Habri said such intense winter weather in the Badra desert area was a rare occurrence that had not occurred in years. He called it a historic hailstorm. The Saudi photographer who documented the scene said the site was teeming with visitors, many of whom had traveled long distances to see the frozen landscape. At the time of al-Habri's visit, Saudi Arabia's National Center of Meteorology had forecast moderate to heavy rain in the Medina region, along with winds, low visibility, and hail, but everything changed and the impossible happened. Number 8. Mysterious finger found in the desert reveals secrets of early humans. A single finger bone discovered in the Saudi Arabian desert has provided unprecedented insight into our species' early migration out of Africa. The bone is the oldest confirmed Homo sapien fossil discovered out of Africa and the Levant, dating back 90,000 years. It defies conventional wisdom about the history of humanity, implying that people spread far and wide 30,000 years earlier than previously thought. The discovery is a dream come true for Professor Michael Petralia of the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History, who led the project that discovered the bone. Found at a site known as Al-Wusta in the middle of the hyper-arid Nefer Desert, the bone is the culmination of a decade's work by Professor Petralia and his colleagues. Following the discovery of the fossil, scientists spent 2 years subjecting it to rigorous tests in order to determine its age and confirm that it did in fact belong to a member of the Homo sapiens species. The gender and age of the bone's owner are unknown, but archaeologists believe they belong to a thriving community in what was once lush grassland based on their analysis of the site. Despite being only 3 centimeters long, the finger bone has significant implications for our understanding of early human history. Traditionally, the exodus of modern humans, our species Homo sapiens, from Africa was imagined as a single rapid movement 60,000 years ago. This discovery establishes for the first time conclusively that early members of our species colonized a vast region of Southwest Asia, not just the Levant. Number 9. Meteorites found in the deserts of Saudi Arabia. Imagine yourself standing in the middle of the Saudi Arabian desert. Would it cross your mind to look for evidence of objects from outer space under your feet? Well, buried in the sand are fragments of meteorites, the only known objects to have hurtled through space and landed on Earth. The meteorite crater at Wabar, long known to the Bedouin of the Empty Quarter, was first mapped by John Philby. Philby's meteorite fragments discovered near Al-Hadida are not the only space objects discovered in the Rub al-Khali. They were also not the first to be discovered on the vast Arabian subcontinent's surface. A 19th century discovery did in fact come nearly 90 years before Philby's Al-Hadida meteorite discovery. 2 masses of meteoric iron weighing 131 and 137 pounds were discovered in Najd, a mountainous region of east-central Saudi Arabia. A grey bronzite chondrite meteorite that fell into the desert in the Hijaz, Saudi Arabia's western coastal region, was reported in a French scientific journal as striking the Earth on a spring night in 1910. Then, in January 1931, Bertram Thomas, an English explorer, discovered a meteorite fragment in the sands of Al-Bu in the Sawahib dunes of the central Rub al-Khali. And the once remote expanse of the Rub al-Khali has been surveyed and mapped in recent years by exploration parties of the Arabian American Oil Company. Since 1952, Aramco geologists have made a number of interesting additions to the Rub al-Khali meteorite inventory. Donald August Home, an Aramco senior geologist, recently undertook a survey of exotic rock specimens brought in to Dhahran Aramco headquarters over the last decade from geological field parties. Meteoric materials have been discovered in at least 10 locations in the Rub al-Khali. How recently did the meteorite strike the Rub al-Khali? According to Home, no one can be certain. Number 10. 120,000-year-old footprints with a deep history of humanity found in Saudi Arabia. Fossilized footprints in Saudi Arabia, frozen in time for around 120,000 years, have pushed back the date when humans are thought to have first migrated from Africa. The elephant, camel, and horse prints were discovered on the floor of an ancient dry lake bed in the Nefer Desert, a remote area in the kingdom's heart. They are the earliest dated human evidence on the Arabian Peninsula, pushing back migration dates from Africa through the region by tens of thousands of years. Their discovery also provides critical information about major climate changes in the region over millennia. The lands these early humans discovered was not the arid, waterless desert of today, but rather stretches of green savanna with freshwater lakes and rivers. According to researchers, these conditions made what is now Saudi Arabia so appealing to both people and animals as they moved north to Europe and Asia. The team quickly discovered elephant footprints because they were pretty big and obvious. Further investigation revealed what appeared to be a human print, which was confirmed by analysis that included 3D modeling and high-resolution photographs. Calculating the erosion of the former lake bed over time and luminescence dating, which measures radiation in buried grains of sand and determines when they were last exposed to direct sunlight, helped to date the footprints. The latest Saudi discovery confirms that Homo sapiens arrived in what is now the Middle East much earlier than previously thought. Number 11. Hundreds of mysterious stone gates found in Saudi Arabia's desert. Google Earth has opened the doors to ancient mysteries all over the world. Archaeologists have discovered nearly 400 previously unknown stone structures in the Arabian desert that they believe were built by nomadic tribes thousands of years ago. David Kennedy, an archaeologist at the University of Western Australia, was behind this amazing discovery. Since 1997, Dr. Kennedy has flown planes and helicopters over Jordan, photographing the angular and wheel-like structures scattered across the country's lava field or Harat. Little is known about the people who built the edifices, but they are thought to have been built at least 2,000 years ago and possibly as far back as 9,000 years. They are the ancestors of the region's modern-day Bedouins. The kites, which were discovered by air pilots in the 1920s, are the most well-known basalt boulder structures. These are called kites because each resembles a child's kite, complete with strings and long fluttering tails that are flattened into the ground in 2 dimensions. Archaeologists believe ancient nomadic tribes used the kites, which can reach lengths of over a mile, for hunting. The 2 long converging walls of the structure would funnel stampedes of gazelles into the kite's body, where they would be slaughtered. However, the lava fields extend beyond Jordan's borders into Syria and Saudi Arabia. Their mysteries do as well. Saudi Arabia in particular offers a wealth of Harats that are just out of Dr. Kennedy's reach. Kennedy calls them gates because they look like a simple fence with 2 thick upright posts on the sides connected by 1 or more long bars when viewed horizontally. What were these gates used for? That is the big question that there have been no satisfactory answers to. They don't appear to be funerary or used to dispose of dead bodies, and they don't appear to be structures where living people lived, nor do they appear to be animal traps. Number 12. Deserts suddenly covered in bloom of purple flowers. Visitors from all over the world are flocking to Saudi Arabia to experience a shocking but pleasant event. They exclaim the heady thrill is like suddenly finding yourself in paradise. A desert bloom brought on by heavier than usual winter rains has carpeted the sands of northern Saudi Arabia with purple flowers. Mohammed Al-Mutari drove nearly 6 hours from his hometown in the kingdom's center to see the rare splash of color in the otherwise bleak landscape. The 50-year-old retired teacher said no one expects to see anything like it in Saudi Arabia, as he surveyed the sea of purple stretching as far as the eye can see in the desert around Rafah near the Iraqi border. Visitors claim the smell and sight of the plants known as wild lavender in Arabic refreshes the soul. Winter rains brought deadly flooding to parts of western Saudi Arabia late last year, but they have brought life to the desert in the north. Another visitor drove 770 kilometers or 480 miles from Riyadh to see the colorful flowers before they wilted. The bloom doesn't last forever. This scene lasts between 15 and 20 days a year. But apart from having such a short lifespan, this bloom has a natural predator, camels that love to munch on them. However, the local residents have kept the hungry animals away from the annual spectacle so that they can last for as long as possible. Number 13. 4,500-year-old avenues lined with ancient tombs discovered in Saudi Arabia. Egypt is famous for its Avenue of the Dead, but Saudi Arabia has a claim to that title too. Archaeologists have discovered a 4,500-year-old highway network in Saudi Arabia that is lined with ancient tombs with a fantastic level of preservation. Over the last year, researchers from the University of Western Australia conducted extensive research, including aerial helicopter surveys, ground surveys and excavation, and satellite imagery analysis. According to findings published last December, the funerary avenues spanning large distances in the northwestern Arabian counties of Al-Ula and Khaybar had received little attention until recently. It was basically hiding in plain sight. According to the researchers, the funerary avenues they studied from a helicopter stretched for hundreds, maybe even thousands of kilometers. And wait for this, the same routes were frequently followed by those traveling along today's main roads. You'll often find that main roads follow these same routes as avenues because they're the shortest route between the two places they're going to, thanks to their impeccable calculations thousands of years ago. The tombs are predominantly pendant-shaped or ring burials. Ring tombs consist of a cairn surrounded by a 2-meter-high wall, whereas pendant tombs have beautiful tails. The researchers used radiocarbon dating to determine that a concentrated group of samples dated between 2600 and 2000 BC, though the tombs were in use until about 1000 years ago. The researchers believe that single individuals or small groups were buried in the tombs, and the team has observed approximately 18,000 tombs along the funerary avenues, with 80 of those being sampled or excavated for research purposes. Number 14. 8,000-year-old temple discovered in Saudi Arabia. A team of researchers discovered some remarkable finds, including the remains of an 8,000-year-old Neolithic settlement and a stone altar, as well as adding 2,807 graves from various time periods. The researchers surveyed a site in Al-Fur using cutting-edge technologies that included high-quality aerial photography, guided drone footage with ground control points, a topographic survey, remote sensing, ground-penetrating radar, laser scanning, and geophysical surveys. Al-Fur is situated on the outskirts of Al-Rub al-Khali. The rock-cut stone temple is perched on the edge of Mount Tuwaiq east of Al-Fur. In ancient times, it was a center where locals would have performed rituals and ceremonies. Several devotional inscriptions were also discovered, calling into question our understanding of the religion and belief systems of whoever inhabited the site. One of these inscriptions is from the Jebel Lahaq sanctuary, which is dedicated to the local deity Kahal. It was commissioned by an individual named Wab Alat, a member of the Malhar family. They were self-proclaimed Al-Jarrah residents. According to the researchers, this inscription may indicate a possible trading and economic relationship between the cities of Al-Fur and Al-Jarrah. Perhaps it is a sign of religious tolerance or the worship of the deity Kahal by the people of Al-Jarrah. Number 15. Prehistoric-era carvings of camels discovered in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is famous for its many camels, but what many people may not know is how long camels have featured in the lives of the inhabitants of this kingdom. But according to a study, a series of camel sculptures carved into rock faces in Saudi Arabia is likely the world's oldest large-scale animal reliefs. Researchers estimated that the carvings were made around 2,000 years ago. This was due to their resemblance to reliefs from Jordan's famous ancient city of Petra. However, a newer study suggests the carvings are way older, suggesting they're between 7,000 and 8,000 years old. To determine a new date for the sculpture's creation, the researchers of the new study examined erosion patterns, examined tool marks, and tested animal bones discovered at the site. Their age makes them older than Stonehenge, which is 5,000 years old, and even the pyramids of Giza, which is only 4,500 years old. But interestingly, the timing even predated the domestication of camels. Why were these carvings made? It is unclear, but the researchers speculate that they may have served as a meeting place for nomadic tribes. Something else that baffled the researchers is how the carvings were made thousands of years ago. This is because many of the reliefs are high above the ground, meaning their carvers would have needed to construct scaffolding to create them. Where would they have got prehistoric scaffolding from? Let's hear which of these discoveries fascinate you the most in the comments section below.